My name is Annie. I'm 25 years old. I am Catholic. I was born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in 1998. I know that both of my parents were not necessarily wealthy, but they were also not necessarily poor. My mom moved around a lot, and so I think that definitely impacted the wealth or like the financial status of their family. And I know that my dad was just given what they had. Very similar to my parents growing up, I would say, that we just made do with what we had, and I never knew if there was like any like deep bad financial problems, but I also knew that they weren't necessarily like wealthy either. I think when I was in high school, having all of my different health problems probably impacted my ability to learn because I wasn't in school very frequently. But besides that, I don't think so. I went to preschool, and it was just right down the street from our house. It was at a church, and I went there for 2 years, and it was like a half-day preschool. I don't remember. I think I went there in the mornings. And then I went to kindergarten, and I also did only like half day on kindergarten. And then 1st through 4th grade was all at the same school. It was the same school as my kindergarten also. I think that school was also very impactful because it was close to my house. And then 5th grade, I went to a different school because my elementary school that I went to closed, which was really sad. And then, and that was all a public school. And then I went to middle school, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. But there was a transition in the school. Like they changed a lot of things within like the school district during that time. So it was, when I was in 6th grade, it was still 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then they switched then when I went to 7th grade that it was just 7th and 8th grade. Okay. And then there was all sorts of transferring of schools and people between 1st through 6th grade then, and then it became like a primary school, intermediate school, and then a high school, and that was public school. And then I transferred to Catholic high school, 9th through 12th grade, and then I went to a private Catholic college university for 4 years, and now I am teaching at a mission school, and I've been teaching at this school for 3 years. A significant experience in education. Mm-hmm. I would say my elementary school, like the nature of my elementary school was very family oriented and very community oriented, and like anyone that you could ask about my elementary school, like that had been impacted by it in some way, would be positive. There was never a time that I remember being in elementary school and my parents were like frustrated with like the education system there, up until they closed, and then they were very upset that they closed. I would say middle school was hard because there were so many transitions during that time within the school system, and that probably impacted my abilities in school, and just the fact that there was like new students that I was needing to interact with that I wasn't really anticipating that. In high school, I really loved art class, and that was a really, really fun, encouraging time. And in college, my professors were all very personable and cared about each one of us in our classes and made time for us, and yeah. I would say the class sizes were under 30 students. I can't remember there being any more than like 28 students per year. And I was in the same classroom with the same students all day and the same teacher all day. And I really liked that. I had some of my best friends in those classes. The teachers all seemed to care about us. I also had a reading specialist when I was in elementary school. And I really liked going to my reading specialist because I got candy. But yeah, it was very like, I could tell that my teachers all cared about each one of us. There wasn't any kind of favoritism or anything like that. I really liked like different activities that we would do in school, and that's like throughout all of my schooling, and even now as a teacher I love an activity. like a field day or like a fun day or getting an extra recess or stuff like that, or like Christmas parties. I remember in elementary school we would have like the parents come in and help with Christmas parties or like Halloween parties. My elementary school would also do parades around town, and we would go and visit the nursing home, which for some reason as a kid I was always scared to do that. I was scared of old people, but now I'm not. It's good I'm after that. And we would have like art contests that would be like showcased throughout the whole town. That was fun. Middle school, can't remember anything. High school, I also like art classes and like getting to participate in different contests and stuff with art was good. Getting to do things that weren't just school, like not just like learning in a classroom, but like actually interacting as like a human being with other people. Yeah, that's my answer.
Some of the worst parts.
Yeah, once again, middle school. Just like all of the different things that had to happen in my district and like the different changes that happened. Yeah, that's probably it. I never really experienced anything like that necessarily, like me specifically, but I could see that with other people that I was surrounded by, like how some teachers just enjoyed certain students more. But I also don't know if that was necessarily because of their gender.
Right.
Also, it could have just been their personality.
Yeah. I get that.
Yes, now that you say that,
Yeah.
correct. Once again, going back to middle school, my middle school gym classes were like all mixed, and like you could definitely tell who, and we also had like two gym teachers, like one male and one female gym teacher, but they both taught us at the same time.
Okay.
And we were all mixed together, and our gym classes were big too, like there was like maybe like 60 students in the class at a time, and you could tell like who would be the ones to like start kickball or like be the ones to introduce the basketball lesson, and like who would be sitting on the sidelines. And I would say most of the time it was like the boys that were doing that, but it was also like just the students that were involved in sports outside of school.
Right.
And those were also the people that got along with our teachers, our gym teachers too. I could tell also like when we had male teachers, like I remember having like a social studies teacher in like 7th or 8th grade. Like he would really favor a lot of the boys in the class.
So you didn't notice as much of a difference when you had a female teacher? You feel like the female teacher made it more even across the board?
Yeah. So I know this because of the school that I work at now. It used to be split up. The classrooms were either like all boys classes or all girls classes, and they stopped doing that pretty recently, like the last like 5 years. I don't remember, but it was before I started teaching there, and they noticed that the boys do way better when they're mixed together with the girls.
Oh, okay.
And the girls did way better before when it was just girls.
That's interesting.
Which is super interesting. However, they just stopped doing that. But they still do split up the classes, boys and girls, for their religion class. And I find that helpful because then, like, the girls specifically are able to ask questions and not feel like the boys are like they're judging them or anything. I don't know.
Right.
But as a teacher, listening to them, but I also think that's like the boys too.
Yeah,
like, they just like kids just want to talk, you know. You just want to listen to them. I think that, funny enough, I think the boys are more dramatic than the girls. I think it has to do with like the teacher's upbringing also. I've noticed this with some of the people that I work with, like the teachers that I have, that I work alongside of. Like some of them just like naturally are better at working with girls versus boys or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the girls that I teach with, she coaches a boys volleyball team and like she's good at it.
Right.
And the boys like respect her a lot, and it's not like she doesn't get respect from the girls or like isn't able to relate to the girls, but for some reason like she's able to like reach out to these boys a lot easier and naturally than she is able to with the girls. And maybe it's because of like having siblings that are boys. I don't know, maybe. It's funny because I noticed, like, that was something that, like, I remember being in elementary school and talking about that, like, with my classmates, and, like, boys can't be teachers.
Yeah.
And then we got to, I don't remember, like, 4th or 5th grade, and then there was a male teacher hired. We're like, what? Since when is that allowed?
Right.
And then it's funny because as I got older, then I had more male teachers. Like, when I got to college, I would say most of my professors were men.
Yeah.
Like, and that's super interesting. I don't know why. I don't know. I think it's really interesting that I noticed in my years of educational experiences that administration, roles in administration have been like the primary like person in charge has tended to be a man.
What about office staff?
They're always women. Like, I remember this was so funny in middle school. We had a principal and a vice principal. Our principal was a woman. Our vice principal, a man. Guess who was always the one in charge? The vice principal.
No way.
Why? I don't know.
So why was she even given that title?
I don't know. We just thought that she sat in an office all day and just like looked at paperwork.
So
but he was like
if you
the
got
one.
in trouble, I mean, not like you got in trouble, but if somebody got in trouble, who would they go to?
The vice principal.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
Really?
Because he's a man.
Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting?
It is. It's very interesting.
This is like making me think of everything now.
Yeah.
Also, like all of the details of my life.
Cut. Thanks.
You're welcome.
First name.
My name is Stephanie. I am 51. So I was raised Catholic. I was born at St. Joe's Hospital in Lancaster on February 25th, 1972. So I would say that my parents both came from middle class families, and I would say that we were raised in a middle class family. Going to Catholic school was definitely a plus. I started preschool and in Mountville at a little church, and then moved on to Mountville Elementary for kindergarten, and then went to St. Leo's from 1st grade through 8th grade, and then went to Lancaster Catholic for high school, and then went to cosmetology school in Lancaster. Probably when I was a senior in high school, we had something called Christian education, and I think that's what it was called. And we went out to different places to help in the community, and I went to Leola Elementary School, and that was life-changing. I remember the teachers being very kind and caring, and we weren't treated like a number or anything. They definitely took their time with us and cared. I would say it felt very much like I was at home. It was a comfortable experience. I do not believe that there was any difference between how they treated the boys and the girls. Everything that I was taught was acceptable at the time. I don't remember there being anything that I didn't care for or that I would change, other than maybe teaching more life skills like how to deal with money. We touched on finances, but not enough. I feel that that is something that the school should spend a little bit more time on. I don't feel in my experience that the boys were treated any differently, at least at the school that I went to. I would say our classes were probably 20 or less kids through elementary school, and probably similar in high school. I would say our classes were pretty similar amount, boys and girls, from early on all the way up through high school. I think there were less than 200 kids in our class, in our graduating class. I don't really remember taking a lot of preparation classes for life. Thankfully, I had good parents. There were a lot more women teachers when I went to school, but we had primarily women teachers. The gym teacher was a man.
Okay.
And I think that may have been the only male teacher that I had through 8th grade.
Okay.
Everybody else was a woman. And then when I got to high school, there were a handful of men teachers, but still I would say there was more women. There was a male Spanish teacher.
Okay.
There was a couple of male math teachers. There was a male religion teacher.
Trudy. I'm 76 and a half. I'm Methodist. I was born in Karlsruhe, Germany in the year of 1947. Okay, my parents, because it was post-World War II, and of course it had been after World War I in Germany, they were probably in the lower end, but they were farmers, so therefore, you know, I know they ate well.
Yeah,
and during my childhood, for the first half of my childhood, again, we were after World War II, so we were on the lower income. Then we immigrated to the United States in 1953, where we started all over again. So we were lower income, then moved, I'd say, to middle income with, all the different jobs and things they had. So I'd say for most of my time, I was middle income. Well, I think the difficulty of coming to the United States in June and starting in September and not knowing the language made it difficult in the beginning.
Right.
But then as I went on through my education, it certainly did improve. Okay, the timeline was pretty much for elementary school, it was Philadelphia, and also middle school and high school. So I did graduate from high school in Philadelphia. Primarily through the bank, yes, I did.
Oh, very nice.
So they had special programs set up. So I took courses through that, like principles of banking and loan. And then later I went on to make all of my licenses, my, Series 7, Series 24. I made my insurance license, and then I had to take a state test. So I had to go through educational classes for all of that. Well, I think what stood out to me was in 7th grade, I had a history teacher that I liked a lot, and she really renewed my interest in history. I love history to this day, and I think it was because of this woman.
Oh.
And she also gave me a lot of incentive, to improve myself, to do better. Okay, my elementary education took place in a neighborhood school, which was Benjamin Franklin.
Okay.
So it was more of a community thing. And, you got to know all of the teachers in the school. You knew the principal. It was a good experience all the way around. I did struggle in the beginning, and spelling was tough in the beginning because not knowing the language as well. But I think as I progressed, that community school that I could walk to meant a lot to me, and living in that community. Let's see, probably in elementary school, there was anywhere from 35 to 40.
In each grade?
Yeah,
Wow.
at least. And I'd say that there were more girls than boys. Now, high school, I had 918 in my graduating class. We were the first graduating class for George Washington High School. I mean, you knew a lot of people, the people you rode on the bus with, because at that time I was supposed to go to Northeast High School.
Okay.
But Northeast High School wasn't taking any 9th graders. So this new school opened, which was George Washington, but I had to take 2 buses to get to it. So you got to know the kids on the bus, of course.
I'm sure, that's a long
that
time.
came with you, and so it was, and you got to know the kids in your different classes. I'd say probably high school.
Yeah.
I'd say 9th grade, 10th grade. I really enjoyed those grades. Or not, I shouldn't say no. It was 10th, 11th, and 12th was my high school, because middle school was the 3 other grades. So that was 7th, 8th, and 9th. Middle school, but I really did enjoy high school, and the challenges I think it offered, and the different clubs you could belong to. And,
oh, that's very fun. What kind of clubs were you a part of?
I was part of the Leaders, which was the gym club. It was, you were chosen, and what you helped the teacher during the class.
Fun.
So they assign you different equipment, and then you supervise that. I was in choir a couple of years, which I also enjoyed because we went to different places.
Yeah.
So that they were the 2 major. I think adjusting to middle school was very hard.
Yeah.
It was a totally different world. I went from a small community school to a school that now filtered a lot of different people and making friends. And I think that was tough. And there were, all of a sudden now we were faced with different people. In middle school, they were pretty good size too. They usually ran at least 30 people,
Okay.
at least.
Wow.
And there were like 12 different sections, so there's 30 people in each section.
Oh, okay, so each grade was split up into
Sections. Like 7-1, 7-2, 7-3,
Oh, okay.
and that's how. For
That makes
2
sense.
years I stayed with the same section. That was 7th and 8th. But in 9th grade, that's when the determination was made: are you going to college, or are you going to take commercial?
Oh.
And I did take commercial
Okay.
because my parents couldn't afford college. That was the first thing. My mother was set on me becoming a secretary, which I never did. So I was very lucky because I ended up in what was called 918, which was the top section for the commercial.
Oh, Wow.
So I actually had some college English and all too filtered in there.
Very
So I had more of a diversity than some other people. It's interesting because in elementary school it was primarily women, and even the principal was a woman.
Okay.
Except for the gym teacher who was a man, Mr. Walsh, I remember well. So you had primarily all women.
Yeah.
You know, we had no male teachers.
Right.
Getting into middle school, there were a mixture, but primarily, again, women. The one teacher that I had that was male taught history,
Okay.
but most of the others were female.
Okay.
Really, I didn't have. Oh, in English, I had one in 10th grade that taught English.
Okay.
A male.
Yes.
But I didn't have a lot of males.
It is.
It's very different, yeah, and I remember primarily being women, except for the history teacher that I had, and then the English teacher. I don't think I had any other male teachers in high school.
Okay.
We did have a male principal in middle school, and we had a male principal in high school. Yes, especially in it was middle school. Cooking was the girls,
Okay.
shop was the boys.
Oh.
But you could take shop as like a club
Okay.
if you were a girl, because I took
As a
it one time
club.
as a club.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, it was definitely split.
Okay.
Now in high school it wasn't, because we had people in my typing class, and we had one guy in my typing class.
Oh, just one.
Yeah, and he was good. He was better than all of us. To think about that one.
That's okay.
Just,
Take your time.
I don't think it differs. I mean, I think education does differ a lot today in the subject matters and what the basics. Nowadays I don't see them emphasizing the basics as much as they did in my day.
Right.
I think that has changed. As far as the environment, we have problems too. You know, we had mean girls. We had fights after school.
Yeah.
You know, where the kids would gather and, you know, call each other out. I don't think that differs a lot. I think they deal with it in a different way nowadays. But definitely, when I see what Sierra has learned and what I saw what Austin has learned, the basics are not emphasized as much as they were then. Really, money skills. I had bookkeeping.
Okay.
So I understood the financial piece, which was a very good class. I had a tough teacher, and we actually had to run little companies and all. So I started to understand the finances a lot better.
Sure.
Bookkeeping, shorthand, I took typing. I had English, of course. I had the basic classes, English and math and all. English, I got kind of lucky because I was in the higher tier of the commercial.
Okay.
So I ended up getting a lot of literature and things of that sort, where sometimes in the other English that they taught, they didn't get as much. So I had a little bit of both worlds.
That's really
yeah.
nice.
I would have loved to have gone to college. I mean, I think that's the biggest regret in my life. But my parents couldn't afford it, and I was expected to go out and work, and I did. And I made it anyway. So I had
That's
science, history. I loved history. Science, off and on. Oh, I did have a male teacher for biology.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And he was weird. I remember him well. And, you know, I'm trying to think what other classes I had. Of course, I had the sewing, and I had the cooking, and I had all those classes too, the basics.
Life skills, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that pretty well sums it up. I had the commercial math, you know, and emphasis on the commercial piece of it. I was helped with my speech. I had a lisp at one time.
Okay.
So in 5th grade, they put me into speech class
Oh, wow.
to overcome the lisp.
Yeah. And it helped?
It did. I
And
did.
that was
overcome
part of your schooling? You didn't have
Yes.
to do it outside of school?
No.
It was part of school?
That was part of my school.
Wow.
Yeah. Nice is I had a teacher that originally came from England.
Okay.
And because she came from England, she understood that there was an adjustment period. My 1st grade teacher was wonderful, and she got me through it.
Oh,
2nd grade was harder for me. I had trouble with spelling.
okay.
And the teacher she was young and was not as compassionate.
Yeah.
So that was a little harder for me. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is my mother helped me with my homework. So my mother learned English through me and learned to read English.
That's really cool.
And she was a whiz at math.
Yeah.
So she could help me with the math homework. But that's how she learned English.
By helping you.
Yeah, because
That
she
is so
went
cool.
to a night class to learn English, and the teacher used to make fun of them.
Oh.
So she stopped going.
Yeah.
So that's how she learned her English.